Jag Panzer, Thane to the Throne. 2000. The year 2000, Y2K. Of course, there was a lot of controversy at the start of the year. Everybody thought that we were going to die. And we've had about 3 subsequent Armageddons ever since. We're still here. I'm still recording videos, so obviously nothing happened. Which means a lot of people bought bottled water and toilet paper for absolutely no reason. Seems almost kind of silly. However, let's talk about this album. Jag Panzer, of course, no longer a band because of the rising costs of touring and basically the rising costs of being a band, the failing record industry, and a lot of different reasons. But Jag Panzer have been around for quite some time at that position, for 3 decades in fact, considering they had formed in the 1980s. However, Thane to the Throne in the 2000s, I picked this specifically because this is an album that revolves completely around a work of Shakespeare. It revolves around the play MacBeth, and it is done very, very well. Now, whenever you first look at the back of this album, you see the fact that there's like 16 or 17 tracks on it. And the first thought that you're going to really have swirl through your brain is, oh boy, it's going to be one of those albums. Instantly, you can kind of tell that this will probably be a concept release, not to mention it's going to be one that may actually involve a little bit of, attention span. And that's a good thing to have, especially with a band like Jag Panzer. They've been able to release a lot of great material prior to that, but this is the album that really, I think, broke through for a lot of people. This is an album also that started to get some airplay, and not to mention started to circulate to a lot of other people, considering their move to Century Media Records at the time. They released Identity, which were basically collections of recent artists or recent signings or just current artists that are on the staff, and basically they were able to put about 17 or 18 different songs from 17 or 18 different artists on this thing. Jag Panzer was on this a couple of different times for a couple of different albums. I believe for this one, and Mechanized Warfare. I don't think that they were on an Identity for the album that followed that one, but that's because I think the Identity series quickly kind of dissipated. But I could be wrong. MacBeth is one of those plays that whenever you see it, you can definitely see the epic variety to it, and you can see how it could easily be transcribed either into a television show or into a concept album. Jag Panzer actually took on this ability, and they're able to combine just regular good old-fashioned heavy metal with power metal in order to really create the ideal medieval atmosphere for this record. Yeah, it's not necessarily all being played on ukuleles and, something where it definitely feels like you're a bard in that proper century, or, you're literally right in the same room as MacBeth or any of the other members of Thane, but it is definitely one thing where the mood is set very, very nicely, and the tone is set beautifully. Throughout the course of this event, you basically can pick up on elements of each, really of the play as it goes along. Now, while you might not necessarily hear special phrases or, those keynote quotations that are sometimes used by people on Facebook and just to make themselves look smart, this is instead something where the lyrics that they have written basically suit the mood beautifully. Consider the fact that as you flow through this, they are able to take a couple of moments just to sort of break, almost like acts. These are small little moments that really do play a big part, because sometimes it becomes very difficult to listen to a full 16 or 17 track album in one sitting, all about one particular concept. It becomes very difficult, principally because you just simply get overwhelmed. Their way of breaking this up through 17, 18, 20 or 30 second interludes is definitely one that was relatively genius. And it's something that was separated, and they were able to use very soft tones that kind of put you back into that time frame. So, whereas you weren't getting it with the whole, electricity thing with the electric guitars and everything like that, the electric bass, the, boombastic drums and those microphone thingies that nobody else had back in those days, you do get a feel for that whenever they do their breakdowns. And no, this is not like deathcore breakdowns. These are those separators that I was speaking about. Overall, I really love this album. It's probably my favorite from Jag Panzer next to Mechanized Warfare, and really, throughout the entirety of their discography, these guys are just fantastic individuals, not to mention fantastic musicians. I say fantastic individuals because Mark Brody had posted on the Iron Maiden band board for quite a long time under the name Jag Panzer, so I had the opportunity to converse with him quite regularly whenever I first got into the band. That was a really cool opportunity. This is one of those bands that you just get into, and now all of a sudden you're talking to one of the members. That's fucking cool as shit. He still posts on some message boards regularly, However, of course, he has other duties, like not being on the internet. Overall, I really recommend this album. I know that I've done more in the way of setting what the tone of the album is like as opposed to maybe principally reviewing it. However, I'll just say this. The music is incredibly solid, and the lyricism is great. While it ain't Shakespeare, it's its own form of Shakespeare. And considering they're covering Shakespeare, well, I don't know how else I can get Shakespeare into a sentence. Oh wait, I just did. Definitely pick up this record. It's one that should be readily available if your metal section is large enough, and if you ever happen to go onto any sort of Discog website or even onto eBay, I'm sure you'll be able to find one. This is one that I definitely think should be in a lot of people's catalogs, especially for those who are just beginning to get into heavy metal or power metal. It's a good way to kind of get an ear for both of them. Though, I will say this, on the power metal side, this airs closer to heavy metal than the, all-out fantasy crap. So yeah, there you go. Shakespeare, baby. Good stuff.